Make it super easy. Now we're rolling. Damage Plan MMA podcast. I'm Jason. As always, my co-host, Mr. Zack Partridge, the voice of MMA in Utah. We are live in studio today for the first time.
That's pretty good.
How you doing?
I like this.
So this Spider Spotlight podcast, we are welcoming Mike Big Bang Olasky, who will be fighting September 18th on the SteelFist Fight Night card. He will be headlining the card against the Blue Power Ranger, Blake Foster. Mike, welcome to the podcast, man. We're excited to have you on today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, guys. Thank you for inviting me. I love your guys' work.
Appreciate it, Mike. Hey, color correlation. I wore my red Damage Plan shirt today.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Should I take this as a subtle backing of the Red Power Ranger in this fight, or do you have to stay neutral for journalistic purposes?
I don't have to stay. I do whatever I want. You train. We train with the same coach. You train at my gym. Like I don't. We had Blake on the podcast. He was very nice and stuff, but I don't think it's a secret like who we're like trying to lean towards the hometown guy, the Steel Fist guy, and there's ties, but it's MMA, it's sport. We can all be friends.
Yeah, I mean it's grateful. That's the great thing about MMA is you punch your friends in the mouth and then get a beer later, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or my case of water.
A beer 12. That's fine.
Yeah, sure. So did you by chance have a second to listen to Blake's interview with us?
I actually didn't listen to the whole podcast, but the fun thing about the Ranger community is that there's like a ton of people whom are very interested in this, and they have sent me excerpts of things. So I might not know exactly what you might be referring to, but I'm pretty sure that I've cobbled together the nature of the entire thing. So
the one thing that's been pretty mind-blowing for me is, so I grew up loving Power Rangers, right? Like I was the Red Ranger for Halloween when I was 5. There you go. But I can't believe how big of a following, because I got more into football, baseball, basketball. There's still a giant following for us. How did all this come about, and how did you get it hooked up with SteelFist?
I was surprised when I kind of got back into the Power Ranger scene, how big the fandom actually was, how accepting the fandom was, and how nice the people within the fandom are. So you and I are on the same level. I found out only within the last 5 years that there are entire Comic-Con conventions that are just dedicated to just Power Rangers, where they'll invite all the actors out and everybody will dress up as their favorite Power Ranger and stuff like that. I've always known that there were Comic-Con conventions because I'm a big comic geek myself, but I didn't know that the Power Rangers fandom was so big. The way we got into this sort of kerfuffle, for lack of a better term, is a few years ago I had just sort of jokingly posted on my Instagram that who would win between myself, because I was really deep into fighting at that time, and Jason David Frank, whom you might know as the original Green Ranger, the White Ranger, sort of the most popular Power Ranger of all time. And because I know he had some MMA fights as well. So what I did, who would win? And obviously they all picked Jason David Frank. I mean, just I mean, I think I would have too if I didn't know either one of them. And then Blake came up and he was like, "Hey, you should fight me." And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Okay." So that's kind of how it sorted out. The way we got into SteelFist Boat was, we shopped it around a lot. And to be honest, it was more or less a business deal than anything else. SteelFist, I'm comfortable with SteelFist. I know that they can put on good shows, professional shows. I've fought with them pretty much my entire career. But more so than anything else, I wanted this to be a pay-per-view event so that people whom couldn't come to the actual fight can still see this fight, knowing how large the Power Ranger audience was. And SteelFist through, I think it's blitzpass.tv, provided that opportunity. So I was comfortable with them. I knew that they were going to do a sanctioned fight. Nothing shady was going to go on. Everybody was going to get paid. And they also had a pay-per-view option for people whom aren't in the state to watch two Power Rangers beat up on each other.
I was going to say, so my next question is one, you used to be a mainstay for SteelFist. You were a very active fighter for a long time. If I remember correctly, broke your hand, and we haven't seen you in a cage for over 3 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it's been a while. I was fighting for SteelFist for a good 5 or 6 years, pretty much every 3 to 4 months. And that's to me, that's just how you get better. And then at that last 155 fight, I broke my hand. And then there was a whole insurance kerfuffle on my end that took me a year to get that done. And then after that, we started working with Blake Foster to get him on the card. The goal was to pretty much promote it for an entire year for all of 2019, and then fight in 2020. And then 2020 happened, and nobody was fighting anybody for anything.
Yeah.
So this would be my first fight back in I don't know, since 2000, late 2017, maybe even 2018. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So this fight it's a catch weight fight, right? So you're actually coming up in weight from where you normally fight, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, yeah, it's catch weight in the sense that we're both meeting at a certain weight, but it's actually an official heavyweight fight.
Light heavyweight.
So,
yeah.
So I have gone up to 205. My last fight was at 155. The majority of my fight career was at 170. And Blake, I don't know exactly what his fight weight is or what he's supposed to walk around in, because he's been using this process more or less as a weight loss journey as well. But I think about 205 is where he would be competitive at anyways.
So how do you feel training and preparing to compete at a new weight class that is usually the opposite, right? For me, I started at 205, but my last fight was down at 170. Usually you want to, you don't want to be jumping up 2-3 weight classes. You usually want to be going down if you can. So how's that experience been?
I'm one of the things that I've really loved about fighting growing up, just early 90s stuff when I was a young kid, UFC, Pride, all of those things were brand new to at least the American audience. Is I always called them carnival barker style fights, where you would see these fights with a smaller guy fighting just a big giant, right? The type of stuff that you'd only see at carnivals. And so when Blake kind of came on and said that he was interested in a fight, those are the images that rang in my head, those old Pride super fights that were just one guy looking up at the other.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what got me really excited about the prospect of this. And that's half the reason why I decided to go up in weight, is just to kind of experience that kind of carnival barker style event. As far as training goes, moving this much weight around is a bit different than me fighting at 155. I was a lot faster. I was a lot more spry. But over the course, we've had a very long process to getting me to this weight. So I feel like the majority of that weight is good, solid muscle. So, I have these tree trunks of legs now that throw kicks just massively. And it's exciting to see what this kind of power can do. My wrestling also is a bit different. I'm very much a hips down kind of top dominant power style wrestler, and having this much more weight on top of me makes me a bit more of a force to deal with than it was at 155, which is exciting and empowering mentally.
Yeah.
And we rolled Saturday, and I concur.
That is true. I forgot. Yeah, we rolled Saturday. And yeah, so you could definitely feel how I'm using my dad bod against people now.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So to not looking past or anything, that you had a lengthy amateur career. You were one of the top amateurs in the region. Now this is officially your pro debut. Is this a one-off for you, or is this something you'd like to become a little more active with after this?
It really depends. I definitely slow rolled my amateur career because fighting amateur career-wise is it's a weird thing, especially when you have like the social media following that I do. Because I'm able to leverage like a market and sponsorships that other people at my amateur level weren't able to do. So while I was fighting as an amateur, I was still making professional money, just on the end of sponsorships, not on the fact that venues were paying me. I'm totally open to taking offers, to listening to what people have to say after I win this fight. But if they come to me with like the way most professional venues will come to a new professional fighter and offer me like chump change for something, then yeah, this might be my last fight. But if somebody comes to me with like legitimate offers that are decent, then yeah, I'm all ears. I'm definitely down to take this further if we can make it a professional career. If people are just going to come to me and say, here's $500.
Business sense. Has to make business sense, right? Because most professionals on their first professional fight, they're looking at contracts at maybe like $400 and $400. For people that don't know, pro debuters do not make a lot of money to fight. You can barely call them pros because you definitely couldn't be a professional and support a family or a life off of that money. That's for sure.
Correct. I mean, this isn't the NFL, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Where like lowest paying people in NFL are still at least six figures. So it's kind of one of those things. I think I come to the table from a professional perspective with more so than most professionals come into it with. I have a large following. I have a lot of people who are interested in seeing what I have to do. So I think the money would have to reflect that for me to fight again. And if not, that's absolutely fine. I'm perfectly happy. Just teaching martial arts and doing what I've been doing for my entire life as well.
So I got a question circling back to the fight with Blake. What are you expecting from Blake? Because he's obviously never been in the cage, but he has a pretty extensive martial arts background. What are you expecting from Blake on September 18th?
Well, that's what's fun about this fight is we have some ideas as far as like what he likes to do and what his background is. But from that position, there's only conjecture, right? I once heard a Rampage Jackson interview where he was talking about the fun thing about fighting in Japan in the early Pride days was that there was no footage that you can find of somebody, and it was basically a fight the way you would get into a fight in like a bar or something. You have no idea what that person can do. That person has no idea what you can do. And that was pretty exciting. And that's sort of how I'm trying to approach this fight as well. Like I have some good ideas of what he might like because my martial arts acumen goes back so far and I know like the moves and stuff. But as far as like what he's capable of, I have no idea. I can walk in there on September 18th and, do a high school level shot and a footlock, and then it'll be done in 30 seconds, or I can be in for the brawl of my life. I have no idea. Neither does anybody else.
I think that's what makes it intriguing.
Yeah.
Like, especially like, because people know you and like you were around and so active for so long, but we see this all the time with fighters. We break down fights every Friday night or every Friday afternoon for the upcoming UFC fights. And one thing we look at when somebody's coming off of a long layoff, which it still happens even at the UFC level, they'll take 2-3 years off and they'll come back. And it's either horrible and they've gotten worse and they're taking a fight for another payday, or they've gotten better and it's like, oh my gosh, they're a completely revamped person. Maybe they come back a different weight class, whatever, too. So we have no idea what to expect from Blake. And really, like with you, it's like, is it the old Mike? Is it a revamped version? Like weight class difference? I think that's the biggest intrigue for, if you're not into it for Power Rangers from a mixed martial artist standpoint, I think that's the biggest intrigue with this fight.
Well, and I agree with you. And that's what's fun about this fight is that, I think that every one of my advantages and every one of Blake's advantages are sort of counteracted by each other. Blake doesn't have a lot of experience in the cage, but at the same time, the dude walks around at like 225. And on my heaviest day back when I was super active with SteelFist, I was 185. So there's a lot of counterbalances going on, which I think makes this fight super interesting.
What are some of the things that you've done to help put that weight on? Have you hired a nutritionist, or is it something you kind of do on your own? How'd you get to this point to gain the weight?
Yeah, I thought that it would be a lot easier. To be honest.
You know what, Mike? It's funny because I do nutrition coaching with my clients, and I always tell people, putting on weight is a lot harder than trying to lose it. You gotta eat to gain that weight.
Yeah, and that's what I was experiencing. I have a nutritionist coach through builtmag.com who's been with me for all my SteelFist fights since day one. From that time, I thought it would be a funny idea to try to fight at 145, all the way up to today. And honestly, lucky for me that this fight took so long to get settled, because today I'm finally hovering, I think, at a healthy like 205, where we're not at too much fat to where you're not going to be able to do anything, but not too muscle that it just takes so much oxygen to move and mobilize that you're just going to get tired in the first round. So I think that length has really helped me hit that equilibrium with my coaches there. And I'm not a nutritionist. You probably would be better at explaining what I'm doing than I am, but it's a lot of checking in like daily. What's your rate? What's your weight? How did you feel? Okay, let's up these carbs. Let's lower this fat. Let's try this. Let's try that. It's a lot of communication, and as my wife could probably tell you, communication isn't my strong suit. Been working on it.
Most wives,
yeah. Oh man, yeah, that's awesome, man. That's commendable, man. It's not easy trying to gain weight like that. I know from personal experience, it's not easy.
Yeah, well, fortunately, it's not like I'm looking to gain weight so that I can win a bodybuilding show, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot harder, and the reason why a lot of people look to gain weight is because they're looking to add that kind of like aesthetic muscle.
Yeah.
I can come in, we joke on my TikTok all the time, so much so that I printed a shirt for it. But we're calling this body Dad Bod Beast Mode. Because I'm not going to walk into that fight with the shredded abs and like the capped shoulders that I did in my last fight. Like this is definitely going to be a fluffier Big Bang, the biggest bang you've ever seen.
The biggest bang, like that. Hey,
by the way, sneaky good TikTok if anybody wants to go follow it.
Beat me to it.
It is pretty entertaining.
Yeah,
it's understated, and I know a lot of people don't like to admit that they're following me and admit that they laugh, but I guarantee you'll get a good chuckle at it.
Yeah,
I'll admit it.
I admit it too. I enjoy it.
They're funny.
That's all that matters. The opinion of YouTube.
So I do have so also again, when we're breaking down fights and stuff, one thing that we always look at when we're picking fights and where their advantages are. One thing that I think that's interesting about this fight is he was talking about his jiu-jitsu. He just got his 4th stripe on his white belt, which is fantastic in his own jersey. He's been in his own journey. He's been competing and stuff. But like mat time is just not something you can overcome, I don't think, quickly. And I think that if there's an area that the discrepancy is going to be the biggest, I would imagine it would be if the fight went to the ground. I don't know your thoughts on that. Size, I know size does matter, but I feel like it matters a little less on the ground.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to punch from your back. That's kind of been my philosophy going into most fights, especially in the latter aspect of my amateur career. So I agree with you. I think that without like giving away what my sort of game plan is going into this fight, I think that there's a level of experience under pressure that can't really be developed over the course of like a year of grappling and rolling, especially as it pertains to MMA, because geez, half of my ground game in my amateur career was pretty much usurping the expectations of your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class with punches. Because while I do have a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the bulk of my wrestling experience comes from Western styles of submission wrestling, catch as catch can, collegiate wrestling, and Japanese styles of submission wrestling, which tend to be very throw oriented, very pain submission, crank rip tear oriented style of wrestling. So when you get in there and you think that you got a good jiu-jitsu game, all of a sudden when the punches come into play, when the pain compliance comes into play, it tends to be a whole different world. So in that regard, I don't think that that Blake knows what world he's getting into. And at the same time, I think that he's completely sleeping on my ability to get past his range.
Yeah. So there is, you're talking about a new world. A new world for you is there's something extremely new that's legal for you now as a pro fighter. Elbows.
Yeah, that's
going to be something that you look forward to or possibly wish. I don't know about you. I can only speak for myself. Yeah. I cannot think of anything worse than being underneath somebody that can legally throw elbows at my face. Like when I talk about going pro, I'm like, yeah, that's how everything. It all sounds good. It's great. Get paid, whatever. But now I get elbowed in the face. So it's like,
it's a very intimidating concept. The elbows. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's the kind of the aspect of keeping things active while on the bottom. And I come from, my stand-up styles are basically Dutch, Holland style kickboxing and Muay Thai, which tend to use elbows very well. And not only very well, but creatively. So I tend to have a very novel approach to elbows on the ground as well as standing up. For me personally, I don't think that Blake has enough understanding of how to maintain base and throw strikes from the top for me to worry about elbows as much. Not that I'm not worried about it. Anything can happen. But from a stand-up perspective, I hope that his game plan is to throw elbows because, I mean, that would make my life a whole lot easier just because, he's negating all of his range. So
that's a good point too. Are you an MMA fan in general? Do you follow the sport actively?
I do love MMA. I love watching the fights when they're on. But as far as like actually getting super excited and like ordering fights and kind of keeping up on stats and stuff, not so much. So I would consider myself more a casual fan of MMA. And there are certain fighters whom, if they're fighting, I will definitely show up for. But as far as like to the level that you guys are, you guys probably wouldn't consider me a fan by any means, because you guys, your wealth of knowledge is probably so much higher than mine. I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Well, to be fair, we probably have an unhealthy obsession with it. So
just ask our wives.
Just ask our wives.
Speaking of wives,
yeah.
So Mike, September 18th, man, how do you see this fight ending?
It's hard to tell. It's hard for me to make a concrete prediction. Everybody would like to come out as like Conor McGregor and just be like, this is what's happening, lights out in a second, blah, blah, blah. I've always been the type of fighter who who is very good at figuring out what you suck at and bringing you there. So really, how Blake loses on September 18th is really going to be up to him. I think if I had a wish list, I think that Blake has the type of personality where if I knock him out suddenly, he would say it's a lucky punch. If a referee stops it, he would say the referee stopped it too early. I feel like, and maybe this is wrong and I don't know him that well, but I feel like he's very much an excuse maker. So if I can get the submission where he physically has to tap, I think that would be the best win for me, because that would be a loss that he couldn't walk away from and say, and make some excuse over, if that makes sense. 'Cause the world wants him give up, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense.
Was that a concise enough answer? I know you probably wanted something more spectacular.
Nope.
Perfect.
Nope. That's fine, because a lot of people won't even answer it. So
yeah.
And then
well, fair enough. I'm already ahead of the
curve. So just choke them unconscious and it's all good. Or like you said, make them tap.
Yeah. Let slobbering on his side, just like that would be nice.
Yeah. Oh man. So Mike, do you have any sponsors you want to give a shout out to? Anybody you want to give a shout out to before we let you get out of here?
Absolutely. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to talk to you guys and to thank sponsors. My main sponsors are a book by the name of I Should Be Dead, But God Had Other Plans. It's by an author by the name of Mike Jones, who is a famed Hollywood stuntman. And it's basically his autobiography. And it's a great read. You can get that at www.ishouldbedeadbook.com. And then, of course, the fun one is the movie Legend of the White Dragon, from the creative minds of Jason David Frank, the original Green Ranger, and Bat in the Sun Entertainment comes an all-new world, all-new universe that Power Ranger fans specifically are going to have a lot of fun. And it's a full-length feature movie, and it's looking like a lot of fun. Those are my two main sponsors, but if you guys want to sponsor me in this fight, you can always follow me on social media. I have links in the bio to where you can buy cool shirts like this, and all of the money that you guys get from or that you guys donate to buying shirts and stuff like this goes directly to my fight camp, because as Zack probably knows, Aldo isn't exactly inexpensive. So anything
get what you pay for with coaches,
get what you pay for, man.
That's right. So the more you support, you get cool shirts. You help me punch the worst Power Ranger ever in the mouth. So
I do think it's ironic you are sponsored by another Power Ranger. I mean, if that gives any indication which way he's leaning.
Exactly. Well, I'm not only sponsored by the most popular Power Ranger, I'm sponsored by the Power Ranger that Blake said he was defending when he challenged me to the fight. So
all right.
It's interesting.
Read into it however you'd like, right?
Yeah. Man, yeah. You take away. That's your thing.
Mike, how do people reach out to you to get tickets? Do you still have tickets available? I guess I should ask that first.
I do believe that there are tickets available. Some sections are sold out. With this fight in particular, you don't have to worry about contacting me directly for fights. On SteelFist's page, they actually have an extra way for you guys to purchase them online. So if you go to like the link in the bio of my various social medias, you'll see live tickets there, and you could just click them. Just make sure you're buying tickets underneath me and my picture, so that you sit in my section, because it might be really weird if you're wearing this Bangarang shirt in Blake's section. They might not like you so much. So
or if that's the thing,
hey, I mean
that'd be the type of thing I would do.
I'll tell you what, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get Zack a Bangarang shirt, a red one. We're gonna buy him a ticket from Blake's section and just watch him fight his way out after he loses.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll do it.
And for those of you that are listening that cannot make it to it, you can go to blitz.tv and check out the pay-per-view.
Correct. So the pay-per-view should be available at least nationwide. I think I got confirmation that it's worldwide as well. You'll just have to obviously adjust for the time zones if you're that interested in it.
All right. We just put the link right there, is on the bottom right there, www.blitz.tv. Mike, It's been an honor having you on today, brother. We appreciate you taking the time out to chat with us. Can't wait to see you September 18th, SteelFist Fight Night.
Pleasure's all mine, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Mike.
We are out. Oh, dope. Look at Sagen did.